Participate in this thing. We appreciate you hanging out with us. You can participate in the conversation. 42464-5685. Charter Heyman text line, Honda of Lincoln hotline. Call in. You can text in. Be a part of this thing. The video stream is up, so you can follow on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch to do that. Rico, we finally got winners for the Super Bowl squares. Who were they?
We finally got some winners. We have Ryan, who guessed correctly on Nebraska's leading scorer. Bo Spencer had 18 points, and Lemon comes in second with both players' names. Bo Spencer, they actually had him with 19, which wasn't correct, but they got the Minnesota player correct, and that is, let me get his first name, Chip Armelin, with 15 points off the bench for the Golden Gophers.
Yeah, like who had that? Picked a tough one.
It took a little bit for the Google fingers to work, but everybody got it. Ryan and Lemon, congratulations. You guys won your Super Bowl squares. I will enter you into that. Get your names in the box.
And that was at Devaney. That was not at PBA. Yes. So they are, Minnesota's 0-6 at PBA. So, I love the history stuff. Speaking of, let's bring in our guest for one-on-one. And I feel I was humbled, flattered when folks reach out and say, hey, we're paying attention to what you're doing. Not always the thing that happens. So when it happens, I'm appreciative, I'm grateful. And we were talking and I said, all right, listen, Kent, we got to figure out this out, man. Just come on in and let's talk. So from the Lincoln Journal-Star, Kent Wolgamott, thank you for doing this.
Oh, anytime. I'm happy to do so.
So tell the folks what made you curious. Like you reached out and said, hey, I want to, I've got a couple of things I'm working on. Are you interested in participating? And I was humbled and flattered and said, yes, greatly appreciate it. Why the ticket?
Well, it eventually even gets to me that, that there's something different going on out here than your, I guess you call it standard sports talk radio, right? I mean, it's not all hot takes and people that have never come within 2 feet of a game, given their highly educated opinions about things.
Right.
And also, I think it just feels like, at least from the outside, that there's kind of almost a community thing being built here. And that was what triggered it. Plus, here's this guy who came into Lincoln from much bigger places, doing much bigger things, running a little, relatively speaking, independent radio station. Plus, you're being African-American doing that. All of those things are like, this is interesting. And it's something that's happened in our town that's never happened before.
Right. It was, and we said, Ken says, okay, we'll stop by. We'll talk for about 30 minutes or so. Ended up being several hours of conversation over this thing. And I wanted to have this conversation with you on air because I found your history extremely interesting. Because not everybody travels and not everybody has the exposure. You're almost a Husker historian because of the amount of time you spend here in the circles you've been in. So for me to tap into that only makes sense because you can help me get a greater understanding of what this community is and about. And it's good to know that there are Kents in the world, right, who aren't afraid of something different. You aren't afraid of somebody talking a little bit different, looking a little different, thinking a little bit different. My thing with this thing, and as I told you, is to just create this super community and family of Husker fans who can get on the same page even when they disagree about semantics. But the basic premise would be that we're all rooting for Lincoln, the Huskers, and each other.
And to me, the other part of that is you've also brought in Jay and Eric, and the Huskers themselves, which that really makes, I don't know, it just resonates a different way with than, some guy like me that sat and watched games for however long. I can have my take. I don't know what it's like to actually be doing it, right?
Well, it's a greater understanding.
Yeah.
And I know that people want to be heard, and people want their opinions they want their voice heard and their opinions validated. My thing is, it's really difficult right now, currently, to talk about the things that exist within the major programs because they're not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can come in here and bang our heads against the wall every day about how bad it is. Or we can reset and refocus and rethink. One, be proud of it. It's hard to talk about the national championship years and not be proud of it, but also it tells you what could be happening now. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah. And the other thing that needs to be sort of taken into account is how much things have changed within both society and within the game itself, particularly in football, that sort of have contributed to the fact that they're not doing well. It isn't always, oh, this guy can't coach and they're not. I mean, you have all kinds of things that have happened, and we could run down that list as 100 miles long.
Mm-hmm.
But, here's one thing that made a huge difference. I'll give you one example.
Okay.
For Nebraska is as soon as every game of every team got on the television,
mm-hmm.
that one of the advantages that Nebraska had disappeared, because Nebraska was consistently one of those programs was on ABC generally 5-6 times a year, right? Either regional or national game.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't many other teams that were getting that much exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what does that do for you? It puts your name in front of these kids that might come there. Well, now every team in the whole country is on every week. That advantage is gone. Yeah, it might make better if you're on ABC than on Big Ten Network, but you're still on every game still on. That made a big difference. People don't understand that,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. A lot of it the business of college athletics is louder
mm-hmm.
and more apparent, right? It's not the warm and fuzzy anymore of the anonymity that happens behind the program. Now we know who all of the spokespeople are. We know who all the communication directors are. Everybody has a voice because of social media. And sometimes that floods the market with information that isn't good for the players, team, or community.
Agree.
Right? That ultimately, while everybody deserves a space to vent, there still has to be accountability for it. Like, you have to be responsible for it. As a journalist, you understand fact checking and confirmation, and going behind the story behind the story means as much to you as it does the outcome of the game.
Right.
It tells
Absolutely.
you that. As you put stories together, what are the building blocks that you use to put your story together?
Okay. The first thing this doesn't matter whether it's sports or anything else, is you start with some background, right? And you got to do a little research. You got to have some idea of what really, at least what's known about, whether it's true or not, at least the research.
Mm-hmm.
Then you come out here and do an interview with you, and you try to do some sort of, what am I trying to say? Bring in other sources as well, whether it's written, video, interviews, whatever, and you put all of those together. Then you try to put it I try to put it in a context that is very straightforward. And here's what it is that I'm trying to write about.
Mm-hmm.
There may be a quote slant on it, because you can't help that, right?
Well, you're again, based on your research, your work,
right.
Your energy source, you then get to put some of your personal feeling into it.
And you can't help it.
Right.
The idea that there's some sort of, quote, objective journalism, there's never been, because you've always done that.
The human part matters.
Exactly. And it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
But you try to be, and you also, I hate the idea that I hate the fact that Fox used this as a marketing slogan because it devalues the words. But I always try to be as fair as I can to everybody that that I write about. And if there is a balance, right? And sometimes there's not, frankly. I mean, I think the media sometimes gets into this. We have to have both sides. Sometimes there ain't both sides, right?
Sometimes it just is.
But the fair and the balance to it, right? So you're not coming at it and trying to hammer home a point, right? That's your point.
How about and this is kind of from my DC days, they would always talk about balance just means you're considering.
Absolutely.
Right? You don't have to set the pendulum in either direction. You can simply say, this is what this is. Now, others would say that it's another thing. Asking to consider, my professors would always ask me to argue the pro and the con.
Sure.
And that's how you reach the truth.
Yeah.
Is because if you can argue the other or write or discuss the other, that's fair consideration.
Absolutely.
Right through that.
But what you don't want to do is say, in some extreme case, it's a crazy example, but like there's a crime, a murder, whatever, and then you want to write the other side. I did, right? There ain't no other side.
There ain't no other side. There ain't no other side. Why they did it is why they did it. They still did the thing. And that
exactly.
Kent Walgamot from the Lincoln Journal-Star, and I was impressed. You were telling some stories about different events that have been here in town. How long have you been here?
I came to school here in 1974.
Okay.
Then I went to DC for a while and worked for the U.S. Senate. I came back to the Journals. It was two papers at the time. There was Star was a morning paper, Journal was afternoon paper. I came back to the Journal in 81. And so I've been at the Journal since 81. As far as writing about Nebraska or the Huskers, I did a little of that when I was in college, but not a lot. And then from 81 onward, doing various things, I've done football pretty much. I was trying to think last night or a couple nights ago. I think I probably missed, I would say, less than 10 home games from 81 up until last year, of course.
That's a streak.
That's
a streak. That's a heck of a run.
So I've seen, I don't know how many hundred games, a couple hundred, maybe. I don't know.
So walk me through give me a couple of moments in all of those home games that stick out in your mind as the most impressive, the most wonderful.
I will tell you the single most, it isn't one moment.
Okay.
It's one quarter.
Okay.
Scoring explosion. Turner and Mike and Irving and those guys messed around and were behind Colorado at halftime. And I think it was like 10-7 or 14-10, something like that. Nebraska comes out in the third quarter. They hung 48 points on Colorado in a quarter. And the only reason it wasn't 49 is they missed the extra point. 48 points in a quarter. I've never seen anything like that before or since.
Wow. What was the most disappointing game that you've been in?
Most disappointing?
Or the one that hurt you the most?
Well, I don't know how many times that Oklahoma would come in here and catch them at the very end. I don't know if disappointing is the right word, but yeah, those games. But as far as disappointment goes, I think the ones that are disappointing are where they where everybody where they don't play well, right? And you might even win a game, and it's not, when it isn't a good game, when they don't play well, and that's happened through the years. But boy, there's been a few of those over the last 6 years or so.
See, this is where I trust the historians, the folks who were here, to pass along. And that's why in talking to former Huskers guys who played in those games, coaches who coached in those games, and then fans who watch those games with that keen memory of being able to tell you how I felt in the moment. How is the game experience different now than it was in the 80s?
Oh boy. For one thing, okay,
80s and 90s. You can actually
let me talk about how the writer experience was before I talk about the game. Okay. In the 80s and 90s, we had much different access. And it was much different access in large part because there wasn't as many of us, I think. I mean, the weekly press conference that they have on Mondays, they still had that, but it was small enough. It fit into a room in the South Stadium, and they'd bring in sandwich meats and whatever. And all the coaches would come in and sit and have lunch with us. That don't happen now. Okay. Okay.
Just let that marinate for a second of what that experience would be like now.
Okay. Wow. And I can tell you, here's a little personal anecdote that'll maybe convey something. I had Tom and I had got Osborne had gotten sideways over something that I asked him that he did not appreciate. And I don't even remember at the 30 years ago or more. So I don't remember what it was, but we ran into each other in a health food store of all places and kind of had a little talk, like 3 minutes of, okay, I'm not after you. This is right. The next Tuesday, these lunches were on Tuesday back then. Tom comes in and intentionally comes over and sits next to me. Okay. That's a whole different way that you're looking at because of the access and because you get to know the people. The other thing that happened that they did for years, and I tell people this, I learned more about football doing this than anywhere, is on Sundays after the game, Journal-Star, World Herald, and I was there for the AP, would go to one of the assistant coaches' offices, and we go through the game that happened the day before. Well, when you're sitting in the office with Milt Tinniper and he's saying, well, here's this is this. And, he had a board up on a whiteboard up on his wall, had the name of every lineman and the number of pancake blocks, the number of stuff right. You start to learn those, you get a more intimate view. I tell George Darlington, George is a friend of mine now. I tell George, I learned more about football from him than anybody because it was usually George or Milt. And then of course George says, well, you haven't learned much yet. So Darlington,
he was on the Captain Show yesterday, and the storytelling is just
he's
top.
He's the greatest.
It's top level. So from a journalistic standpoint and from an operations standpoint, why would that not happen now? Why would those type of engagements not happen now?
I two things, I think. One is, as you talked about, the business. It has become much more, the access is much more controlled. Okay. You don't go to practice now. We used to be able to go to practice. I never understood
what was the justification then about not allowing you guys to practice?
I think it's just I think part of it was size. Simply, there used to be 7 or 8 would show up, and now there's 30 or 40.
But that's not that much of a difference. Like, it
It's-
doesn't. It really wouldn't matter, right?
I don't think so,
Right.
but I think the other is frankly paranoia. Oh, they're going to see something and tell whoever what we're going to do, or
But you guys saw as well.
right. And here's a deep dark secret. We don't know what we're talking about most of the time.
That was the part, right? Like, I don't know why that wall has been built. Somehow they think they're protecting themselves, but to me, it's they're preventing their fans, like the people who pay the bills, from knowing the players.
Yeah. And you could still get some player access, but it's always in these more controlled, if you want to call it, situation, right? Where it's a Tuesday press conference and they bring in this kid, this kid, this kid, and this kid, and you can ask for 2 or 3 more afterwards. Well, that's nice, but when you're talking to a kid for 5 minutes, what do you really get?
Well, under those circumstances, he's
Yeah.
not. So, as you and I talked about what my mission and plan for the station was to have young athletes having those conversations themselves, right? Because them talking to each other will give you more information than them talking to adults,
Absolutely.
right? Like in a
Absolutely.
formal circumstance. And that's the branding that should be going on within the athletic program, is to allow. I mean, think about it. Those players are pretty interesting, brilliant folks. They're top level. Give them the microphone and let them explain themselves.
And what you said about talking to a peer, so to speak, rather than me, right, who's their age of their grandfather, makes a big difference, right? But even in a different sense, okay, this is odd but true. There used to be a Taco Bell downtown, and one day I wandered in there at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Tommy Frazier was in there eating. Why he's not at the training table, I don't know. But Tommy's in having him some fine Taco Bell. So I sit, and he sees me, and he recognized me. I sat down, and I got more out of talking to Tommy for 45 minutes eating Taco Bell than I did ever in a press conference.
And it's so much good in that.
Yes,
because it allows trust to be built. As you said, if you and Tom had a misunderstanding, it's much easier for him to come sit at the table and squash it, or meet you and have 3-minute conversation. Those things aren't being done, at least not in the space that I'm in. The players are doing it. I'm not sure the coaches are doing it. And I think it's a missed opportunity, but that's just me.
Oh, I would agree with you. I just had another little thought that what happens when you develop this regular thing is I used to write almost exclusively about line, offensive line, defensive line, and post games. Dominic Raiola would come looking for me after the games because he knew I was going to come talk to him eventually. So let's just get this done.
Let's get it done.
Right. And nowadays, I don't think that happens.
It was weird. I've told the story a couple of times that I was next door neighbors to Matt Luke. And I felt so bad because I would almost try not to engage about football because I knew he was carrying stress with it. And it just seemed like it was just piling on. He wanted to give information. I was like, no, you don't want to do that because that's not who you are. Like, we talked about anything else. We talked about his family. I knew his dad. So, I knew Sonny. So back from my Mountain West days. But I think it's a missed opportunity for both the journalists, for the media, for the fan base, and for the athletic department itself, that to get back to some of the things that were productive, positive, and good for the program for everybody involved.
I absolutely think that's right. I think you see there are some, like SIP, for example, has some of those kind of relationships with people, but there's only one of him, right? I mean, I don't know if there's, whether somebody from the World Herald does or not, but it's clear that most of the writers, most of the journalists are doing it at this one step removed distance.
Like I said, mine is through assistant coaches and the players and the fan base, of course, since I listen to them every day. Even when they think I'm not listening, I am. When they think I'm not reading, I am. And I think it's important. I think it's an easier way for us to get on the same page. Like there are people that really don't want to be on the same page, but I think the majority of Husker fans would love to be on the same page about what the expectation is, what the wants are, and then the access, because that's what ultimately it's all about. Ken, can you hang out for a second?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll throw it to break, come back more. Look, I think this is a great conversation. We'll have more of it here on One-on-One when we come back.
Download our app by searching 93.7 The Ticket in your app store. You're listening to One-on-One with DP on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Parents, if you've been waiting for FDA approval to get your teen vaccinated, the time is now. The FDA has approved the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for use in preventing COVID-19. While this is the first vaccine to gain FDA approval, all COVID-19 vaccines have been proven to be effective against the coronavirus. Want to reduce your teen's risk of hospitalization while protecting yourself and your community? Get your teen vaccinated today. Visit vaccinate.ne.gov to get started.
You need a place to watch the big game, but you don't want to host at your place, and you don't know what friend's house to invite yourself over to. Join 93.7 The Ticket at Buffalo Wings and Rings at 68th and O for Bengals Rams, and enjoy great food and drink, plus the chance to win great prizes. If you simply show up, you'll have a chance to win free prizes. You just have to be there when your ticket is called. What's better than great food, drinks, and prizes? Hang with us for the big game on Sunday, February 13th at Buffalo Wings and Rings, 68th and O.
Southeast Community College is training tomorrow's workforce today with our nearly 60 career and technical programs. We are doing our part to help employers fill vacancies during this current labor shortage, graduating students with skill sets employers are seeking. We're also helping to upskill the workforce by adding short-term credentials like certificates in many programs so that employees can get retraining quickly. Learn more about upskilling with SCC at southeast.edu/academics. SCC, your path to possible.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Koppel Chevrolet GMC. And things have obviously been pretty challenging lately with new vehicles, with all the microchip and supply chain issues, but things continue to loosen up as Koppel gets more and more new vehicles in each and every week. We've had many customers also custom order their vehicles. So if you don't see what you want in our current inventory, we can put an order in to get exactly what you want. So go online, reserve your new vehicle at koppelcars.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, Steve. Welcome to Great Clips.
Great Clips asks, what's the difference between good and great?
Come on back and have a seat.
Good asks you what haircut you'd like.
I have all your details from last time. Would you like the same haircut today?
Great already knows. With Clip Notes, we save your haircut details so you can get the same thing as last time, every time. Download our online check-in app today. Great Clips. It's gonna be great.
Your home should not be a zoo to unwelcomed animals. Let the experts at Bats to Rats take care of those problems. Dane has been a leader in wildlife and pest management and prevention in Lincoln and the surrounding area for 15 years. He can help you get rid of bats, rodents, and anything else. Whether it's residential or commercial buildings, schools, apartments, or churches, they're always a phone call away. Call today at 402-310-0904 or visit batsterats.com. Bats to Rats Wildlife Control and Prevention.
Hi, welcome to Big Chain Bar and Grill. Can I get you a drink? Which game were you hoping to see? Doesn't matter. I don't know what channel the game's on anyway. Are you ready to order? Okay, here's a check. Come back and see us again, okay?
What?
Hey, welcome back into Upside.
Slow down and enjoy the game at the Upside Bar and Lounge. Comfortable seating, plenty of screens, a great food and drink menu, and no one trying to shove you out the door. Come in, hang out, and take it all in at the Upside Bar and Lounge, open daily just east of 27th and Pine Lake.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Brought to you by Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing.
More mild and windy conditions here for our Wednesday. Northwest winds gusting to around 25, even 30, but we should reach up to a high of around 54 with a mix of sun and clouds. We'll see partly cloudy skies tonight. A low dropping down to around 23. Similar conditions again tomorrow. A little breezy with a high of 54. I'm meteorologist Tim Wright for 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
A lot of work goes into making Nebraska, Nebraska. Keeping it green. helping it thrive, making it fun. Everything that goes into caring for our outdoors, from waters to wildlife, plays a big role in making Nebraska home. Learn how we help conserve our state's natural resources at outdoornebraska.org.
Paid for by Nebraska Game and Parks. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
You're listening to One on One with DP, sponsored by Beatrice Bakery on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to One-on-One. Kent Walgamot from Lincoln Journal-Stars here. The storytelling is important, again, from the text line. We appreciate you guys for adding to. I want to read a couple of these. Kent has been a staple of Lincoln and the Journal for basically my entire life. He's unique, tackles interesting stories, and is always a good read. Thought-provoking articles. Love his style. Always have. That's from Sanderson to you on the text line.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Kent, question for your thoughts on Kobe Webster saying things on 93.7 Ticket that cause additional distress for the basketball program. What say you?
What say I?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they cause any additional distress. That's what say I.
That part.
because my guess is, and I don't know this for a fact because I'm not in the room, but my guess is that everything that gets said on the radio here has long been said before inside those closed doors. He's not saying anything that anybody else doesn't already know or isn't already dealing with. And when is the truth bad? Never.
Right. Like he said in his conversation here was that, well, Coach and I have already talked about this.
Right.
And there was zero malice to him saying it. He was asked a question, and then he does a show that's literally called The Truth. That's the name of the show. And he said, listen, talk to Coach. I think we could work on this a little bit more. There was no malice. He was talking about a couple of players, and he said, no, he's a good kid. He can play. He'll be a star when he does that. So I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the fire behind it at all.
Well, okay, you know this. It isn't all kumbaya on any team, okay? And it's what somebody says in the media has a lot less to do with any of that than we like to think, right? This guy's being critical of this. Well, if he's been critical of this, that's already popped up long before it came onto the sports page or onto the radio.
Like, we don't get to make the news. We just report it.
Correct.
And Kobe, certainly, Kobe has a career in radio if that's what he wants to do, because he figured out pretty quickly that if I say what I know, I talk about what I know, I mean what I say, and there's truth to it, that it has value.
And the latter is the important thing. If it's, okay, this is just what I think, and this is from my observation, right? A lot where you get in trouble is when it's all sort of judgment with no
speculation, no,
yeah, exactly,
with no fact behind
with
it.
no fact,
right?
No,
I heard, and this is one of those things you and I talked about it. Dick Enberg was the one that pitched this and said, well, there's simplicity in the truth. There's simplicity in it. And when people make it complicated, go to the source. Don't quote sources. Go to the source. The source is greater than sources. Right? So Kobe's there, and he can speak to it. How anybody feels about it is on them.
Correct.
But Kobe's talking about a thing that he's in and that affects him on a daily basis.
And that was what I was going to say. Okay, I am not a big user. In fact, I would guess I have maybe 10 times ever used an anonymous source quote. Okay. I'm going to you. I'm asking you. If you don't want to talk to me, don't talk to me. Right. But I'm going to use your name, and I'm going to use, if it's something like this.
Sure.
Well, he's doing that himself. It's not like he's being mediated through somebody with a pen, but it's the exact same thing. That's how it's truth, and you're behind it. And the other thing along the line here is, if you tell the truth or speak your truth, so to speak, you don't have to remember what the lie was that you told the week before.
And you don't have to validate it.
There's
no validation required for truth.
And so I don't see that as disruptive in the slightest, honestly. I mean, I'll give you an example of, I still don't know what went on. When Danny Nee was the coach here, there was essentially a mutiny of players who went to the athletic director and complained. And then a week later, everybody's back. Now, I to this day don't know exactly what that was about and exactly what was with, what got worked out.
Here's this is what's funny. So before I got here, I had Nebraska ties, not knowing that I had Nebraska ties.
Okay.
I had Nebraska ties to the Danny Nee basketball program. So I ran a minor league team in Utah that featured Jerron Boone and Tony Farmer.
Well, okay.
Two of the people, right? These are the guys that we would go on the road, and their rooms were always next to mine because they were a little bit more mature than some of the younger guys that were playing. But there were a ton of stories. And then Eric Strickland.
Sure.
Right? To be able to tell. So take three people that were involved in that very thing. A weird thing happens. All three of them independently tell the same story about the events that took place there. And my thing was, nobody's asking them what happened. They would rather have some impression in their head that fits a narrative that they want to use when those people are readily available. And Eric Strickland's been on air off and on since the day I got here, and nobody ever asked him,
is that right?
What happened?
Interesting.
Right? Like, I've had the individual conversations with him. I've had collective conversations with them. Jerron Boone, who by every metric should be a member of the Nebraska Basketball Hall of Fame. Every metric. He's top 10 in almost every category. Right? One of the last champions you had here. And there's a little bit of hurt that he's not valued and tributed here. Like, he wants to be loved. Every Husker wants to be loved. And it's the only thing that people can say is, well, he was part of the walkout. Well, no, that's not reason enough. We know that because Eric Strickland is also, Tyronn Lue is also,
right.
Pike is in. Like we understand logic versus truth. And people who seek out the truth becomes easy.
Yeah.
So I think if you ever want like that, that's a story I would have told. Because you could talk to those three guys, well, those four guys, add Ty Lue to it, and they will tell you what happened.
Oh, I'm sure they would. But when it was going on, it was mystery land.
Right? Like, it's fascinating. Like, the stuff that goes on now, so much of it is CYA. It's all cover your butt. And my thing is, I understand from a business standpoint why you cover, but the reality is, if you want to get it right, if you fix it, then you should tell the truth about it. If it's still going on, you will hide it.
Yep.
Like that's a simple thing for me.
Quick on Eric. He was always, he's one of my very favorite Husker basketball players. And he was like, I think he's the best defensive player they've ever had, period. Nobody else.
Got it.
Right? And that was back in the day when they used to give away cars for hitting a halftime shot.
Right.
I said a better, more entertaining version of that would be to give the guy the ball at the end line and have Strickland guard him. And if he could get to half court, he got the car.
Like, that would be, oh my God. We have to, oh my God. I have to ask about that today.
Because, that guy could guard, and he was athletic. And
can I ask you a favor? Can I ask you to get on with Strick and Bach in the afternoon one day?
Oh, sure.
Because I think like that, those are conversations that should be had. That's a thing that should be said to him because it would absolutely tickle him and make his day.
It was. I mean, okay, here we're heading in another direction. Here, back in the old days at the Devaney, we were on the sideline for a while, and then they moved us up. But we were sitting right on the side, and so when you're sitting 10 feet away from them, you really get to see. And there were guys that you could see from the visitors, from the opponent, didn't want to have anything to do with the basketball because Strickland was guarding them. That's the level of defense that guy played.
I would love to get back to the days where media is there. You can hear the conversations.
Yeah.
Like the best way for them to understand that would be fantastic.
Strick's on YouTube. He said, "Word, LOL."
So Strickland's listening now. That's amazing. Well done, bro. Well done. Yeah, I just think that would be amazing to have. But I also think, again, I understand the money aspect of having big money vendors sitting in those seats.
Oh, sure.
But there's enough room at every Husker event to have the media, especially the beat reporters, the folks who talk about this stuff every day. There, look, no slight to podcasters and the like. Let them go sit up. But the guys who are going to provide the news for you immediately in full, why would you not want them there to hear what's being said in timeouts and to hear what's being said in the huddle and to hear what's being said on the floor? Because some of the best conversations I've ever heard was guys like Strickland going against Iverson and the conversation that's being had.
And here, this isn't directly to the players, but I got to know pretty much all the referees in I guess it'd been Big 8 probably then, and including Ed Hightower. And Ed, he'd come over and talk to you during the game, before the game. He would steal my Snickers bars.
Nice.
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 And there's well, I guess he's retired now, so it's fair enough. Denny Friend was an official, and there was a horrible call in a game, like complete phantom call, right? And I'm laughing. I'm just laughing out loud. And Denny runs by and goes, yeah, right. Well, that was great. We're on the radio. I'm doing a gesture.
No, well, they can see. Everybody can see this. That's why we video stream. We give that opportunity as well. All right, so we'll throw it to break. We'll come back. We'll close out 101 with Ken. I do want to do a thing while you're here. We'll do that in the next break, and we'll close out this hour before we hand it over to the captain. Rashawn Jackson will take us from 11 to 2 o'clock here on 93.7 The Ticket.
Watch live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. You're listening to One on One with DP on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Southeast Community College is training tomorrow's workforce today with our nearly 60 career and technical programs. We are doing our part to help employers fill vacancies during this current labor shortage, graduating students with skill sets employers are seeking. We're also helping to upskill the workforce by adding short-term credentials like certificates in many programs so that employees can get retraining quickly. Learn more about upskilling with SCC at southeast.edu/academics. SCC, your path to possible.
Hi, welcome to Big Chain Bar and Grill. Can I get you a drink? Which game were you hoping to see? Doesn't matter. I don't know what channel the game's on anyway. Are you ready to order? Okay, here's your check. Come back and see us again, okay?
What?
Hey, welcome back into Upside.
Slow down and enjoy the game at the Upside Bar and Lounge. Comfortable seating, plenty of screens, a great food and drink menu, and no one trying to shove you out the door. Come in, hang out, and take it all in at the Upside Bar and Lounge, open daily just east of 27th and Pine Lake.
In every office, there's two types of people. There are those who bring in bagels and those who eat the bagels that someone else brought in. Everybody likes the first person. Be that first person. Weekday mornings at 7:30, you have a chance to win a business box of bagels from Bagels & Joe. All you have to do is shut up, Sipple. 2 questions for you, 2 for Sip. Win, and the bagels are yours. Lose, well, you don't want to lose.
You lost Monday, you lost Wednesday, you're a loser.
Shut up, Sipple. Weekday mornings at 7:30, brought to you by Bagels & Joe.
Security First Bank. We're the bank, and we make your mortgage more manageable with flexible terms, trusted advice, and competitive rates. When you work with us, we'll know your name, but we'll also get to know your home dreams too. Security First Bank of Lincoln. Voted best small bank in Nebraska by Newsweek magazine. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender. NMLS number 505011.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Brought to you by Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing.
More mild and windy conditions here for our Wednesday. Northwest winds gusting to around 25, even 30, but we should reach up to a high of around 54 with a mix of sun and clouds. We'll see partly cloudy skies tonight. A low dropping down to around 23. Similar conditions again tomorrow. A little breezy with a high of 54. I'm meteorologist Tim Wright for 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
You hear that? That's the sound of extremely tender and delicious beef from certified Piedmontese. Prime grade tenderness with a fraction of the fat and calories of normal beef. It's Nebraska-raised product and the official beef of Nebraska Athletics. Change the way you buy beef today at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese, just north of 84th and Havelock, or at cpmercado.com.
You need a place to watch the big game, but you don't want to host at your place, and you don't know what friend's house to invite yourself over to. Join 93.7 The Ticket at Buffalo Wings and Rings at 68th and O for Bengals Rams, and enjoy great food and drink, plus the chance to win great prizes. If you simply show up, you'll have a chance to win free prizes. You just have to be there when your ticket is called. What's better than great food, drinks, and prizes? Hang with us for the big game on Sunday, February 13th at Buffalo Wings and Rings, 68th and O.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Koppel Chevrolet GMC. And things have obviously been pretty challenging lately with new vehicles, with all the microchip and supply chain issues, but things continue to loosen up as Koppel gets more and more new vehicles in each and every week. We've had many customers also custom order their vehicles. So if you don't see what you want in our current inventory, we can put an order in to get exactly what you want. So go online, reserve your new vehicle at koppelcars.com. You'll be glad you did.
Back to One-on-One with DP, presented by Beatrice Bakery on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Final segment before we hand it over to the captain. I want to take this opportunity to do a thing because it's what we do, and this is a great reason to do it. For all of your service, all of your stories, Ken. All the time that you put into this thing that you care about so much, and the way that you care about it, the way you handle folks in this community with kid gloves and delicate hands, it's appreciated. It's welcomed, and it's necessary. We have the ability, because of the sponsor for this hour, Beatrice Bakery, just to simply put a smile on somebody's face to say thank you for what they do and who they are. I would like to take this opportunity, kind sir. We're going to put together a care package for you and your buddies at the Lincoln Journal-Star. You can share it with them. Some nice cakes, some nice little edibles, good stuff that we can put in a box for you, just to say thank you, because you're the storytellers. You're the gatekeepers for the great history, the good things that have happened here, and the boundary. Like, you're a standard setter. We remember when it was done right, and it's necessary. So before you leave today, we'll put together the package for you. Take it and share with the folks at the Lincoln Journal-Star. Compliments of Beatrice Bakery. So
I appreciate that. I hope so. I hope that's what we can do. A little bit is, I'm now the old guy at the newspaper, right? I mean, basically, Don Walton's been there since the 50s.
No.
And after Don is me.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd be in that spot. But once you get there, I guess you see some of this. And like you're talking about the community, right? My intent has never been, regardless of what I write about, to beat somebody up in the newspaper for no reason, right? And I mean, I'll give you people say when I'm writing about music, some band sends me their CD or their download or whatever, and it's terrible. I'm not going to go in the paper and beat them up over, well, this is a terrible record, to show I'm some big guy in the paper that can beat you up, right? But if you're good, or if it's somebody, I'll try to help, try to get people to, hey, here, look at these guys. And it's the same, I think, on a sports level, except the difference in the sports level is, particularly when you're dealing with the Huskers, people almost treat them like they're professionals, right? These are not professionals. What student athlete comes first, but they're 17, 18, 19 years old.
Louder for the folks in the back.
I mean, imagine yourself at 17, 18, 19, having that kind of expectation put on you, that kind of pressure put on you, and you're still trying to figure out who you are and what you want, what you're doing. And so why beat them up? It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's been the common thread and most of the discussions that are had in this space. And I'm a fan of people who care about the things around them authentically. You care about this community. You care about the fan base. You care about the people who are playing the games. And then you care about the history of it. And you get to be the storyteller and the reminder and the standard. Like, listen, here's what we are at our best.
Mm-hmm.
This is not us currently at our best.
I agree with that. And okay, I'm so old that as a kid, the first game that I came to as a, in person and not on TV, 1968. So I've been going to games at that stadium since 1968, right? And back then, there was no expectation that they were going to be the greatest team on earth every year. It was a building thing. And, the 2 years immediately before 68, well, they got good, then 69, 70, 71. The previous 2 years, they were a 500 football team. People forget that,
You got to build it. You got to build it.
When Bob came here, now I was too young to know this, right? But when Bob came here, they were bad. They were just flat bad. And it took a while for him to get them built. And he had some advantages in doing it, no scholarship limits, etc. But it took basically a decade for him to get them where they were competing for national championship. Well, people forget that, right? Or they never knew it, maybe.
That's a big part of it too. But that's why we have these stories. This is why we have these conversations. This is why we tell these stories. That, listen, there was a time and there is a way. Do you think they ever get on the same page? Do these two programs ever get back to successful levels?
That's a really good question. The interesting thing to me is that basketball here was at that successful level for a very short period of time during Danny's time. And then we could go on this for weeks.
Well, this is not our last conversation. Okay. So that is, we will get to everything.
But you hired the anti-Danny in Barry Collier, who thought he could come in here and play with players that were the same that he would have recruited at Butler.
Yeah.
I didn't work out real good. And once that went down, it's just been kind of up and down. And Tim got it going a little bit and then fell off. And now I personally have no clue what is going on over there now.
I'm with you. I told you that story. I have no idea for what this is, but I'll keep searching. Kent, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. This is joyful. We will do this again. We'll set up another time for next week because I want to have these conversations.
Anytime.
Good stuff, brother. Greatly appreciate it. Don't go anywhere. The Captain Show up next. Rashawn Jackson. His feature, Tony Veland at 1:00.